Dan, our Olympic previews start now. On this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, we are going to be highlighting the swimmers who aren't getting enough attention and still might not in the next few weeks heading into the Paris Olympics.
Yeah, so we've titled this episode Swimmers Under the Radar Heading into Paris, and I think we need to explain what under the radar means. It's your sort of your not so well-known swimmers that are being talked about. So we're not going to include any Aussies or any Americans. They've just had their trials, so everyone knows how well they're doing, you know. So we're not going to be talking about those sort of names, but it's the names that most people aren't talking about at all, actually, and actually might do quite well in Paris.
Yeah, we've done enough talking about Aussies and Americans over the last... it's not even 2 weeks, it's 4 weeks, because we previewed both those Olympic trials. So we're going to give you 5 women, 5 men. 2 of these will be British, all of who we think can make a serious impact on their races in Paris. Potential medal winners, gold medal winners maybe. And we want you guys at home to get involved as well. Give us your under-the-radar heroes, your long shots for podium, the ones that you think could win medals. It doesn't have to be a gold, but I tell you, going through this list, there is gold medal contenders in here. Yep. And go leave your comments on the Propulsion Swimming Podcast YouTube channel. Now, just because we believe that these swimmers we're going to take you through are under the radar doesn't mean that they aren't household names. So a lot of these swimmers you're going to be familiar with. You're not actually going to need our introduction to them. But are they really, internationally and in Britain, getting the attention, Dan? Yeah, the attention, the praise that they warrant, maybe even when we do our preview podcast heading into Paris, of which we'll do a massive one.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't even mention these guys enough, but we feel like these 10 swimmers need a space to be talked about, which is what this episode is all about.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the 2 Brits, we'll obviously know much more about them, and we've half expected good things from them. And then even the names that we're going to go through who aren't British, they've been almost household names for a while, but they've very much, like the title says, gone under the radar because other swimmers have taken the limelight, if you like.
Whereas Aussies and the Americans.
The Aussies and Americans and, you know, a certain Frenchman, which we'll get to, of course. But, I think there's, like you say, there's a few medal opportunities from some of these swimmers, and some of them actually could threaten the gold. Really
interesting. Before we dive into, we'll start with the 5 women, Dan. So get your notes ready. Most of these swimmers are PBing at this moment in time as well. So in the 2023 to 2024 season, they are all on the rise. They're all improving. And we'll go through their season's best times, their PBs, where this rates them this year and where it rates them all time. And it's really interesting when you deep dive into the numbers like we have. And then there's some opinions to go. So let's kick things off, Dan, with Angharad Evans. We'll start with a Brit because this podcast mainly has a very loyal British audience, of which we're very thankful for. In Britain, I don't think she's too much under the radar now, thanks to her British record in the 100 metres breaststroke. But she's still only 20th all-time with that record, the 105.54 that she swam at the AP Race London International. So, when it comes to Paris, and you're talking the final, you're going to be looking for your Lily Kings, your Tatiana Schoenemakers. I don't know if she's going to get mentioned, if she's going to get the respect that she deserves, but in our eyes, I don't know where the limit is, which is why I think she's under the radar in terms of potential.
I think you're saying that because not so long ago, her PB was like a 67. So she's dropped a considerable amount of time in just 12 months, which is actually phenomenal. Like we've always said that British record has been on borrowed time with Angharad Evans and Cara Hanlon being as good as they are, going your very low 66s. But then she dropped another 0.7 at the AP Race London International to then go a mid 105, which then puts her, as of right now, 6th fastest in the world this season. Suddenly, then she's got a fantastic chance of making an Olympic final. And a lot of those girls, Lily King included, are in that 65 barrier. Yeah. So suddenly, if you're saying Lily King's got a medal shot, obviously she does, then you have to put Angharad in there as well. But will she get the mention like Lily King will?
I don't know. I think in Britain she might get a bit of momentum behind her, a bit of cautious optimism, I think the biggest thing for Angharad when it goes into Paris is controlling the nerves. Like, we spoke to her on the podcast that she started to embrace them to a point, but it didn't quite work for her at the Olympic trials, and she got on the team thanks to the 4x1 medley relay. And then she swam her British record, and they're not going to not let her swim the individual because she's got the FINA ACA in the time period for Olympic qualification. And she's a finalist. Like, her time is the 6th fastest time this year. Yes, we'll get to another one of the names in the next person we speak about. There's swimmers that have gone fast at all time that haven't shown it this year. But I think the time drops are there to see.
I think she's just being quite consistent as well. They've just had the Scottish Nationals up there in Edinburgh.
And it was another 105.
And she went another 105. So I think suddenly that hurdle of going sub 66, getting that British record, it's like, a little lock and key, it's now been unlocked. And so she's now comfortable going that sort of speed. And it's not just, because before I thought she was like a 50 swimmer, kind of like the speed was there, and then she would try and hold on towards the end, and then Cara Hanlon would come through, for example. But actually, she's almost building now, it seems. So she's actually coming back quite strongly, which, again, puts her in a fantastic spot against these other international swimmers.
And I think something to remember is a 105.5. Like, we say podium might be 105 low. She might not even need to PB to get to where she needs to go. The pressure of an Olympics might take its toll on some people. There might be outside chances. There might be people who miss the final because they mess up their semi-final swims.
Anything can happen.
She's got to the point now where she's in the top 6 heading into Paris of this year. The next one we'll discuss is not in the top 20, but arguably our favourite for gold. I think me and you are right there. She's on our list purely because in Britain she's not under the radar anymore. Worldwide she will be. I think I actually saw a tweet of who's your bolter to win like half Nui did at the last Olympics, because obviously he came from absolutely nowhere, and the pick on the women's side was Angharad because she's 20th all time and coming up, and the PBs are dropping, and we're really excited to see what's capable.
I mean, ultimately, times are irrelevant at the Olympics. It's all about putting your hand on the wall first. And you just never know, like you say. Like, I think the last Olympics, Jacobi won it in a high 64 or a low 65? 104.9. Could she drop another half second? And then she's right in the mix. I mean, I wouldn't put it past her. And she is definitely worthy of a top 10, let's say, under the radar swimmer in Paris.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have a British swimming preview podcast. We'll do the deep dive.
Yeah,
I think we'll do that 2 weeks out from the Olympics before we do the massive one, and we'll go through our medal predictions. I'm not sure if there's one next to her just yet. I think we'll go through it, but it's penciled.
It's one of those outside shots, I would say. But it's quite a strong outside shot, but it's still outside right now. Yeah,
absolutely. We're really excited to see what
we are
from her.
Definitely.
Now, the other name in the 100 meters breaststroke, which I teased, who is under the radar because this year she's done nothing.
It seems
Ruta Meilutyte. She is the second fastest 100 breaststroker of all time in a 104.34 on PB. This year she's only gone on 106.7.
That was back in October as well.
I know.
That was ages ago.
So no one has any clue what she's doing.
Yeah. She's done the 50, and she's the fastest this year in the 50.
Okay.
But then, 28th, I think I've got on my notes here. Fastest in the 100.
Yeah, she wouldn't have qualified at, any major trials if Lithuania had trials, but they don't.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting scenario because I think you said it already, that she has a great shot of not just winning a medal, but actually winning gold again. Because, again, her reactions are amazing and she just holds on towards the end. And it's a difficult one to tell because I just don't know where she is. I've got absolutely no idea.
That's why I think she's on our list in terms of the 5 women under the radar. She's on this list because no one knows what she's doing. You're talking about Tang, the Chinese breaststroker, who is the fastest this year. I think she's the only one who's gone a 104.
Yes. Yeah.
There's Schoonemaker from South Africa who's going to be there or thereabouts. Lily King's just come through US trials, so it's Lily King at the Olympics. She's going to get mentioned.
Yep.
I think Ruta will get the articles written about her once the Olympics start. and you see the reaction off the blocks in the first 50. That's all you need to see in the heat swim, and then she takes the foot off the gas, and you're like, okay, Ruta's still good.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on the heats, doesn't it? Because she'll probably no doubt qualify in the top 3, let's say, from the heats going into a semi, which means she's got one of the middle lanes, and then suddenly, oh yeah, she's like Olympic champion from London. Then that conversation will start back up again.
Is she not world champion like fairly recently as well? I'm pretty sure it was Japan.
I was going to say, I don't think it was Doha. I think it was Japan.
She won the 50 in Doha.
Yeah, so she can pull it out of the bag. She's a big-time swimmer, and she's like big stage swimmer. But again,
I'm looking through her achievements here, and she's won how many world titles? 5 long course world titles, albeit some of them are in the 50. There's 2 in the 100, 2013 and 2023. Yeah. Oh my god, 10 years apart.
10-year difference.
I kind of felt after Japan or Fukuoka, she was back, like fully back, and then we've not seen her since.
I don't know what she's been doing, whether she's been just in the background training and trying to do lots of training blocks ready for Paris, but I always thought that racing is the best way to get fitter and get race sharpness, obviously. So it'd be interesting to see what she does. I mean, we could have mentioned Tess Shooten as well for a different event in the 200.
For the 2. Yeah, I was really close to putting her on this list just because I think she's there in the bronze medal conversation. I don't think she's going to challenge the likes of
Kate Douglas and
Schoonmaker, but the bronze is wide open, and I don't think it's just Dutch swimmers just don't get the attention they kind of deserve because they're outstanding. Like they are. Kira Toussaint is incredible.
Yeah, Cromwell Yo-Yo is obviously retired now, but she was like an Olympic champion. And actually, funnily enough, one of our next person on the list is a Dutch swimmer as well. So maybe we should move on to her.
Yeah, do you think Ruta wins gold? Like early prediction. We'll go into this.
I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, I think so. But we'll talk about it nearer the time. But I don't know if Ruta's obviously going to swim, so I don't know how much it's going to change my opinion. I'm going to go for yes as of right now.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. She's the one. She's not just the only one on this list that is going to win gold. But again, like you just don't know what she's up to. You just don't know
exactly.
Okay, the next one, like Dan just teased, a Dutch swimmer in the 100 meters freestyle. Now, obviously, in the world right now, 100 meters freestyle in the women's side is bonkers.
Hot. Yes.
You've got Molly O'Callaghan doing what she was doing, even though she didn't have a great Aussie trials in it. She was pretty disappointed with her time. You've got Siobhan Haughey, who is the fastest this year in a 52.0.
Yeah.
Then you've got the likes of Kate Douglas, Shayna Jack. But between all of these is Marrit Steenbergen, who is the second fastest this year in a 52.24. She is the 8th fastest all time, and that's a PB. She is improving. She is moving up in the world. Do we think she's going to challenge for gold? I'm not sure. Oof. She's the 100 free world champion from Doha, but she will not get the attention of a Callahan, Douglas, even Siobhan Haughey. Nowhere near. So is she going in pressure free?
Well, that's the part of the thing I was going to say, actually. There's no eyes, let's say, on her, apart from the Dutch fans, obviously. But all the attention, all the eyes are really going to be, I would say, on someone like Molly O'Callaghan and, Kate Douglas. They're the top 2 from Aussie and from America. But she's actually, I didn't really realise this until I looked it up, but her 100 free PB is faster than your Kate Douglas, your Shayna Jack, your Meg Harris, Bronte Campbell. She's gone faster than all of those swimmers to go 8th fastest than ever, like you say. And I don't know if she's going to go completely under the radar and potentially upset the apple cart and win a medal. I think a medal's very much on the cards. Whether it's gold or not, I don't know. But a medal, I think it's right on the cards.
But she could also, in our preview podcast, completely get forgotten.
Well,
when you look at the names and the star-studded 100 free scene that it is, I don't think Sjöström's doing it. I'm pretty certain on that.
Yeah. Definitely doing 53, isn't she? But
I think she's concentrating on the 50 and then the relays for Sweden. Maybe the 100 fly. But it's not just the 100 free. She's got a pretty solid 2 a.m. She goes to 2:08, which is faster than Abby Wood.
In this country. We big up Abby, obviously, big time on this channel.
And Steenbergen always destroys Europeans every time. So here in Europe, in Britain, I think me and you are fairly familiar with the name. But just on a world scene, obviously Doha was the world's with an asterisk because no one really went.
No one really went.
On a world scene, I'm not sure she gets the respect she deserves because her times are fabulous.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's recency bias because we've just had the American trials and the Aussie trials, so all the talk is about that.
That's the point of this podcast, then.
The Aussie 100 free is right up there with one of the best domestic races in the world, and so, you know, the top 6 are going to be right in contention, really, but obviously only 2 can do the individual. But Marrit Steenbergen, I think, based on her PB right now, actually went maybe fractionally slower than what Molly O'Callaghan did at those trials. So she's there or thereabouts with Molly O'Callaghan.
I think she was fast.
Which I thought was incredible. Yeah, it's there or thereabouts. It's like hundreds, isn't it, I think?
So Steenbergen has gone 52.26. Molly O'Callaghan went 52.27. So, like, she's in the conversation on this season's form as a world record holder.
Yeah.
In the 2, albeit. I could have actually put Siobhan Hawley on here as well, because the attention will be on Molly O'Callaghan, and she will be the so-called favourite. But I think at this moment in time, I might even pick Hawley ahead of.
I think Hawley is more well known because she's a multiple international medalist, whereas Steenbergen is obviously very good, but she's only really exploded on the European stage. So this is really her big shot at
Paris is near enough home. It's not quite home. But.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of, if you like. Obviously, I know she won in Doha, but again, that was a kind of asterisk sort of competition. Yeah. But I think there's a very good shot that she could medal here, and there's not going to be many people talking about her, I think. So this is, and she's progressing really well, kind of in the same sort of line as Angharad, where who knows where her ceiling is. She could go on and potentially go sub 52, who knows. So, definitely included in our list.
Dan, I guess the question we'll ask about all of them, podium?
For Steenbergen, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's a big old race, that. I think the fact that Sostrom, again, we think, we don't know for sure, but if Sostrom's not racing it, that is then an advantage to Steenbergen, so that's one swimmer out. So I'm going to actually put Steenbergen as a medal winner, but not the gold medal winner.
Okay. I'm agreeing with you. It's almost like we chose this list together.
Well.
We stick with the sprinting then, and on the 50 meters freestyle, so we'll go down slightly, and it's the same sort of scenario here, because there are names that dominate the 50 headline. Sjöström is gonna get most of the attention on this one, obviously.
Rightly so, to be fair.
Very close on closing in on that world record. I think she's gone like 30 plus times under 24 seconds. Then there's the Aussies of Shayna Jack, Meg Harris. There's the Americans of Gretchen Walsh and Simone Manuel. I mean, Kate Douglas missed from the Americans, which is a big thing to factor in here. But again, a bit like Marrit Steenbergen, Kasia Wasick is in amongst all of them. And I think she's third fastest on times this season with a PB of 23.95. And one of the swimmers ahead of us, Kate Douglas. So technically going into Paris, she's second in the year's rankings. Her time's 9th all time. She is only swimming the 50 and the 50 alone, which I think plays quite nicely into her hands. She's forever under the radar. I mean, ISL, she was the standout swimmer for New York Breakers. I remember it from 2021, 2022. And since then, I think maybe me and you, because we did a lot of interviews with the New York Breakers when ISL first kicked off, I think we forever followed her name, and she's forever on the podium in the 50 meters freestyle. But when you think of like the guy side who's constantly on the podium, like I don't know. Like a Ben Proud. Ben Proud's always there. She's not quite Ben Proud's level in terms of she hasn't got that gold crowning moment because of Sjöström. But she is always there. And if I had an each way bet on a podium in the 50 meters freestyle, I'd put money on Kasia Wasick. I genuinely would.
I thought we weren't promoting.
Sorry, I'll take that
back. No, I know what you're saying, because she is the ever-present 50-meter freestyler who's always there. I don't know, going back to your point, does it suit her that she is just solely focusing on the 50?
It goes both ways. They're going to be in the environment earlier. They're going to get used to the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, all of her competitors. So you're talking Shayna Jack, who's going to do the 100 as well. You've then got Gretchen Walsh, who's going to do all of the fly. Simone Manuel is only doing the 50 plus relays, obviously. So it's going to be interesting. Sjöström is going to be, I assume, going to be doing the fly as well. So she might be really the only one concentrating on this 50. Does that play into her hands? Possibly. If someone like Ben Proud, who just concentrates on a 50, it seems to work for him. So maybe it will work for Wasick as well. But yeah, I mean, there's not even any relays for her either, because being Polish.
That's the biggest clash as well, really. If you're talking a sprinter who can go up to the 1, there is the mixed 4x1 medley relay, of which a woman always does the anchor leg, unless you're weird like America.
Usually.
Then so that's when the semi-finals are on. And then when the final of the 53 is on, you've got the medley relay, of which, the best 100 freestyler will be doing that. Are any of these girls actually going to be racing in that? Sjöström, maybe. Especially, Sjöström definitely in the medley relay, but the 50 final comes first. I don't think we need to think Kasia Wasick is going under the radar to upset Sjöström. I don't think that's going to happen. Will she beat one of the 2 Americans or one of the 2 Aussies? Yeah.
Quite possibly.
I think she's there or thereabouts. And she's just dependable. And she's gone sub-24 this year.
Well, that's something I was going to bring up just then, because I think she's only the 3rd female swimmer to go sub-24 this year. Kate Douglas, Sjöström and Kasia Wasick.
Counts for a lot.
So that's obviously some sort of... it's a barrier. Oh no, Shayna Jack has also gone sub-24 as well. So there's a few girls there, but Sjöström is just so far ahead. Like 0.3 on 50 is huge.
I think it might even be more than that when it gets to that.
It could be more than that. You're right. It could be more than that. But again, going back to what I said about Angharad, it's not really about the time. It's just getting your hand on the wall first, doing the processes and getting that all right, which Kasia Wasick does. She's extremely reliable, and she must do it all correctly process-wise, because she's always on the podium, regardless.
I'm trying to think how many medals she's won, like, internationally.
Oh, I don't know the answer to that, but a few, I'd imagine.
So, like, internationally, she won a silver at Budapest, a bronze in Doha, and then Europeans, she's won 2 silvers at Budapest and Rome, 2020, 2022. Short course, she's won medals as well. So she has podiumed here or thereabouts in the last 4... Well, she's podiumed the last 2 years. Long course.
Well, she's competing against Sjöström, which is why you don't hear the golds happen too often, which is just unfortunate. It's just the era she's swimming in. But she's always on the podium at most major competitions. So, she's 32 years old now, so she's just got raw, explosive speed. And she could win the 50, but I don't think she will. But she's definitely got a shot at the silver out or the bronze.
Yeah. Now, final name heading into Paris on the women's side, who we think is undeservedly under the radar and not going to get enough mentions. And that's certainly because of the 3 superstars she's racing against, which are Ariarne Titmus, Katie Ledecky, and Summer McIntosh. But I'm looking at your notes that you've provided for this podcast, Dan, and I genuinely think there's a medal opportunity there for Erika Fairweather in the 400 meters freestyle. I don't think I'm alone in that either.
I put her on this list because obviously the top 3 are going to be spoken about a lot. So it's definitely Titmus, who's getting close to the world record, Katie Ledecky, because she's Katie Ledecky, and then Summer McIntosh, who is probably going to hit a world record, or maybe even 2, who knows, in Paris. So they're going to be talked about a lot. And not many people, if any people, are going to talk about Fairweather, when actually they should do.
Yep.
Because she is one of 5 people who's gone sub 4 minutes with Pellegrini plus the other 3 that I've just mentioned. She's actually a very good swimmer. And again, that was a PB from this year.
Yeah.
So who knows what she can do. If she can find another half second and she goes in that 3:58 sort of margin, then she could challenge someone who then doesn't quite turn up from the top 3 and steal a bronze.
Exactly like she did at the 2023 World Championships in Japan, where Summer McIntosh didn't quite show up in that race.
Yep.
And she got a bronze. And she is the reigning world champion. She won a gold in Doha. Because,
again, a confidence builder, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one that no one went to it. But I just think when you're talking the women's 400 meters freestyle, you yourself, Dan, are going to label this one of the races of the century. I don't think it is the race of the century that is built up to be anymore. But in that race of the century discussions, it's not Erika Fairweather. And maybe it should be.
It should be when she's 5th fastest of all time. Yeah. So suddenly, you've got 4 of the top 5 fastest swimmers in that final, providing they don't mess up in the heats, of course. But I don't think they will. So she should be included in that conversation. She won't be, unfortunately for her, but she is only 20.
That's the other thing.
So she's got a number of years left. So she could potentially join those top 3 and make it a top 4, which then puts it as race of the century, no doubt.
I actually think she's right in there with the shout. I think Titmus is gone. Genuinely, I think...
As in clear.
I still don't know what Kasia Ledecky is truly capable of in this. But I think Fairweather's there to upset McIntosh at this point, which a lot of people listening to this won't like me saying, because she is the hyped swimmer. And the coming
That's interesting you should say that, because I was actually thinking more Ledecky to be the one who may miss that bronze.
We disagree on this all the time, don't we?
All the time, yeah. I agree with you that Titmus is clear. She's 3 seconds clear at the moment. That's miles. She could break the world record. I think she might do that. And then I think Summer McIntosh has more to give. She'll come second, I think. But then I don't know what Ledecky will do. I know her schedule is far more than most.
But the 400 is
the 8 and the 15, plus the 200 for the relays.
Yeah, 400's first day, though.
Yeah.
Which actually plays into Summer being all right as well.
Yeah. I'm going to stand by what I say, but...
Again, we're now having a discussion about Ledecky, about Titmus, and about Summer McIntosh, and not talking Erika Fairweather, which is
and that's part of the problem.
Why she's on this list. Part of the problem. I think sub 4, you're in the chance of a podium.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything can happen in an
She is slightly relying on one of those other girls to not be at their best, obviously. But again, if she was to throw down a 3:58, she's there. She's in with a shot. She's definitely in with a shot.
Okay, so that is us going through 5 women that we think, including one Brit, aren't going to get the articles written about them heading into Paris in terms of the international media outlets, maybe even us when we start talking of previews, medals, which would be what? When are we doing that, Dan? Like 1 week out?
So we'll do the Brits 2 weeks before, and then we'll do pretty much everyone else internationally 1 week before. That's the plan.
And there might be some podcasts during the Olympics as well.
Ooh,
bit of a tease.
Spilling the beans.
Let's see how we go. Right, let's go through the men then, and we'll start with Brit again, and we'll talk Ollie Morgan in the 100 meters backstroke. I think we leave out the 2 for now and just talk about the 100. And it's a bit like Angharad in the fact that I don't know where the ceiling is or the limit is, because he just PBs every time at major competitions.
Yeah, I think he's an out-and-out racer. And so he had, I wouldn't say he had pressure on him at trials, but he was the defending British champion. So he had that to try and defend, as well as try and qualify for his first Olympics, obviously. So there was a little bit of pressure on his shoulders. But there was a lot of talk that he was going to break that British record from Lynn Tancock back in...
Talk from us.
2009 or something like that. Yes, well, we predicted that right, so we were quite happy about that. But similar to Angharad, I think all of these swimmers are similar to Angharad because he's gone the fastest he's ever done this year. But I still think there's more left to give.
Yeah.
I think there's another 0.2, 0.3, maybe even 0.4 left. And then suddenly if he does go that quick, definite final, I think, if he goes that quick. And then can he upset the apple cart and maybe win a bronze or even a silver? That might be pushing it. But, any medal, essentially.
See, this is why I think Ollie's going to go under the radar going into Paris, because the 100 back internationally is deep. And you've got to go low 52, which right now when you look at his PB, it's a stretch. But I don't think the limit is a low 52, if that makes sense. Which is why I don't think he's going to get the conversations, especially when he's only 24th fastest all time. And there's monster swimmers ahead of him. Thomas Chekon, Ryan Murphy, Zhu Zhangyu from China, who's the fastest this year. Those are the household names. And I kind of know what they're capable of. Chekon's got the perfect swim with the world record. I'm pretty sure that's the perfect swim he's going to do.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think we did a breakdown, actually, didn't we? I don't know if we uploaded it or not, but
I'm sure we did.
I think we did. But I don't know how that swim can be even better. No one's really got close to it since, have they? Apart from Chekon himself. But, I don't think Ollie Morgan's going to go that quickly. But if he's able to find some time, then you never know what he can do. But I think something that plays into his hands is the fact that he only really started swimming properly about 4 or 5 years ago.
Like that.
So he's still got a few blocks that he needs to get under his belt. So maybe the next Olympics is actually where he's going to be at his pinnacle.
Yeah,
and this is good experience for him, really, for his first Olympics, because usually swimmers who go to the Olympics for the first time don't perform at their best because there's a lot to take in and all that sort of stuff.
I'm not really expecting that, because I saw what he did at Worlds. Was it last year Worlds at Japan, where he led off the medley relay, and suddenly the medley relay looks like it's at the end of that leg. It looked like it was right in with a shout with the big guns because of what he's capable of. Now, I will say, me and Dan had a strong discussion about this one as well, because I wanted to put Johnny Marshall in as well as Ollie. I think both of them are like an untapped source of potential in terms of how low they can drop. I don't think we've seen the best of either of them. Both are so incredibly young in the sport of swimming. You said when Ollie started, Johnny's literally just gone to Florida this year. We've seen what the Gators are doing worldwide. They're swimming fast, and we saw what Johnny Marshall did at trials. It's just British 100 backstroke's getting there. Like, it's at the end of trials, we were like, it's here, and then we seen what the Americans have done, and we're like, it's still going, which is why Ollie's not going to get the attention that Ryan Murphy's going to get. And in terms of Britain, he's not going to get the attention that Adam Peaty, Duncan Scott, all of these household names are going to get. But he might perform right up there with the level that they're capable of when it comes to an Olympic final.
If he's able to go 52.5, I think that's a fantastic swimmer. If he does that in the start of a medley relay, and you have Adam going his 57, hopefully 56, that'll be good, but let's say 57 for now, then suddenly, we've got a fantastic shot, right? And then you've got Johnny Marshall, who is there or thereabouts. I think he went 53.0 at trials. If he's able to go into his 52s as well, then we've got two guys in the 52s, which we haven't had for
ages.
Ever, maybe, potentially, but a long time. Either way.
The last 52 was what, Chris Walker-Hebben? Was he swimming when Tancock was?
They may have overlapped slightly. Yeah, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a much-needed vital cog for our medley relay, which, because they're so young, it's going to be strong for the next, let's say, 10 years rounding.
Yeah.
So,
I'm excited to see what Ollie can do this summer. Now, actually, if anyone hasn't listened to Paul Boy's podcast with him as well, leading into the Olympics, I would go check that out at the end of this podcast. Sorry, Steve. While we've talked a little bit there about Adam Peaty, then let's talk about one of his rivals who, going into the last Olympics, was certainly not under the radar. There was a lot of attention on Arno Kamminga, as could this be the guy to topple Peaty? Since then, it's been the Chinese swimmer Qing Haiyang who's taken on that mantle, has beaten Peaty at World Championships. And Kamminga's not getting anything honestly, written about. Like, we were doing research for this, but like, has anyone spoken about Kamminga? Because he's gone a 58.6 this year, you know?
Honestly, no one is talking about him. It's very much like a two-horse race. It's Peaty and it's Qing Haiyang, and that's it. And that's the field. You're like, well, I mean, hold on a minute. Like, Kamminga's like, he's the only third man, is it? Third man to go sub 58?
Third or fourth, I think.
Third or fourth, I now can't remember.
He's definitely third fastest all time. Blank.
Yes, exactly. And a 58.6 is actually very good.
Year, yeah.
Like, in the world is actually very good. That's in your basket of swimmers of your Martin Hingis, and I would have said Nick Fink, but he hasn't quite performed as of yet, but you never know. Sam Williamson is in that sort of category as well. But I think Arno Kamminga, because he's able to go his 57, obviously poses a threat. And you have to go back to Tokyo, where he won his 2 silvers. I think he could easily upset the apple cart.
And get in between
potentially. I think so, yeah.
It's a weird one, because he's gone a 58.6, but the Dutch don't have to qualify like the rest of the bigger nations. So when you talk, Peaty went a 57.9. Well, he had to show up at an Olympic trials and swim fast. Kamminga just had to perform at a random Olympic qualifying event, of which I think Edinburgh International is one of them, and just swim a time, swim a FINA A cut. There was no qualification standard set by his federation. He can go do it at any meet. I think World Championships in Japan might have been one of those qualifying meets. Yep.
I honestly don't think there's any pressure on him at all. Exactly. Which is weird to say, being a silver medalist in both the 1 and the 2.
There was a lot of pressure on him in Tokyo.
Yeah, there was. So I just wonder if he will turn up to Paris, no pressure at all. He's just going to swim what he swims and very easily knock out a 57. And then suddenly you're wondering, that might be good enough for gold. So
yeah, I mean, I would say if Adam swims a 57 point in Paris, he'd be pretty happy. I mean, his ultimate goal is probably to get back down to the world record, but at the same time, 57 might be enough.
Yeah, I know exactly.
I know what you're saying. Do you think he's given up on the 2 to focus on this 1? Because the 2 has gone a lot faster, a lot more recently.
It's kind of exploded recently, isn't it? A bit like the men's 100 fly. That's just gone leaps and bounds in recent years.
I kind of hope he has, but I don't know if he has.
I don't think he would have given up. Like, he'll still race it, but I think the 100 would be his main target.
And the 100 does come
That's his best shot of a medal anyway.
Out of the 2 of them.
Yeah, it's like first day or first 2 days, isn't it?
It's a chance for putting your best foot forward and then see what you get left in the tank.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, though. He's one of those, bit like Kasia Wasick, where I think he's going to hit the podium. It just depends what colours he's going to hit.
It has to go right,
honestly, could be any.
It has to go right, because if it doesn't, there's a reason he's under the radar, because Martin Engi is the European one who's been flying the flag over the last few years.
Yeah.
No, I like this shout. This was one of your first names on the men's side, wasn't it?
This was the first name I thought of, yeah.
First name I thought of, Florent Manaudou, in a 50 metres freestyle. I had to put a Frenchman on this list because he's not under the radar in terms of publicity. So from here onwards, it gets a little weird with what we're talking about under the radar.
Yeah.
He's one of the biggest names on this list. Everyone knows who Florent Manaudou is. He has won an Olympic gold before. He's the 6th fastest time this year, 21.5. He's the 6th fastest all time. He's gone a 21.19 before. Does anyone heading into Paris think he can beat McAvoy, Proud, Dressel, Burkhoff, Liendo? I don't know. That's a question we're posing here.
Yeah.
He's got a home crowd behind him. No pressure, a bit of pressure. But he's been there and done it before, which counts for a lot in the 50.
Experience counts, definitely. I put him in the same category as sort of your Ben Proud, who's just been there forever and super consistent all the time. But he's not being talked about because you've got, let's say, your big 3. You've got your McAvoy, Ben Proud, and probably Caleb Dressel. They're your top 3, I would say, in terms of biggest names who have the favourite for the podium. Yeah, and then Burkhoff and Liendo. So they're definitely there. But in terms of publicity, most well-known swimmers, those top 3 are probably those guys. But Manaudou is, you have to go down a list here, about 6th in the world right now. Could he easily get down to a 21 low? It's a 50.
He trains with Ben Proud, and Ben Proud's done it.
Well, exactly, yeah. And Ben Proud's getting consistently quick now. Yeah. He used to be sort of teetering around your 21.8s, didn't he? But now he's consistently about 21.5 or something along this line. But, 21.5 is not good enough, I don't think, for a podium. So Manaudou's really going to have to go some to break that sort of top 5, let's say. Because I think all of those guys have potential of going 21.3 at least. So
do you know why I was putting him on my list? He PB'd in the 100 at French trials.
Yeah, that must be for a relay, obviously.
Yeah,
they're trying to push that.
Their 4x1 combination time is, I believe, a 3:11. Which is exactly the same as the Brits. Who would have thought that? Like we said after the Aussie trials, I think I'll be like, the French don't have a team. They've got a team, Dan.
Mental. It's funny because I only thought of 2 names, Manaudou being one because he hit that PB8, and then Grousset, and I was like,
they got 2 48 swimmers, but Grousset's gone like 47.
Yeah,
which is good. I think the 100 and a little bit of a focus on that 4x1 relay might help him in the 50 because we've seen what McAvoy does 100 these days, here and there.
Yeah, he does.
We've seen his back-end speed on a 50 metres, which is weird for me to say, is important because McAvoy swims past people.
Yes.
It's not all about the first 15 and then holding on to that speed. It's about getting faster now over a 50.
Yeah, which is mental to think, really. Like, times have changed.
They really have.
Really, really bizarre.
I like the fact that he's won a gold at an Olympics. Pressure counts for a lot in a 50. You can't.
It does.
You can't slip.
I honestly think that because it's a home crowd, that will spur him on. I honestly think that will have a bit of spirit about him. It'll, the chest will be pumped out, and I think he'll be absolutely buzzing to get going.
Beyond Marchand, he's the most recognisable face in this French team.
recognisable.
Yeah.
I'd put Grousset in there but I think recognisable.
As the French public home Olympics, he's probably he's massive. He's Man Mountain.
He's big. Yeah.
I think he was the first man to carry the Olympic torch in France.
Was he actually?
He carried it off the boat.
Well, there you go then. That says a lot, doesn't it? Under the radar?
Yeah, in terms of the other names that are going in the 50, I don't...
In terms of the competition, then I'd say so. It'd be interesting to see what he does. I'm going to assume here that this will be his last Olympics, but who knows? Anthony Irvine went on for ages, so he might do another one. So
yeah, I mean, as long as he can sustain a living and go 21.5s, yeah.
Well, there you go. Just look at Bruno Fratas. He did it forever, didn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not at these Olympics, is he? He's injured.
He's not, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, the next one on this list. When I said things start getting weird, they really get weird here. Because this man is the fastest swimmer of this season, the third fastest all time in the 200 meters IM, Wang Shun. Why is he under the radar, Dan? Because of a Frenchman called Leon Marchand.
Yes, very much so. He is obviously not going to be spoken about at all, which is bizarre because he's the fastest in the world this year by a bit of a distance, actually, if I remember right. He's the only one to go sub 155.
And he's gone 154.6.
And he's Olympic champion.
Yeah, that's...
So the fact that he's not getting talked about is actually quite bizarre. Maybe his name's in the lights for the wrong reasons, but when it comes to the actual racing at Paris, I haven't heard his name once. It's all about Marchand, obviously. But
I think people like you, SwimSwam, have crowned Marchand champion in any IM races he races. And then Americans will put Carson Foster silver straight away.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost not common sense, but that's what I think
logically
most people
that's what you do until you see that Wang Shun's gone a 154. And
154.6, and fast. That was a PB as well. So, I mean, he went faster than what he did in Tokyo. Yeah. So how people are disregarding him, it's beyond me, actually. So he's worthy of this list of being under the radar, and he could very easily win gold.
Yeah, I think some people will comment in the comment section, if they've not pressed send already, saying, how can you put Wang Shun as under the radar? Well, we were at Olympic trials in Britain. We were on the media row, of which you get on poolside, you speak to all the swimmers afterwards. And Duncan Scott got asked about his 200 IM prospects, and Wang Shun wasn't actually discussed. The journalist put the question to him, and Duncan had to bring up Wang Shun himself. Albeit we didn't speak to Duncan that night, so it wasn't us. But yeah, when you're swimming 154, you're the reigning Olympic champion, you should be no doubt the favourite. And I can tell you he isn't.
No. Not even close, actually. So if you were to look at the odds, it would just be all Marchand. I think Marchand is a worthy favourite. I think he is favourite to win, but I don't think it's going to be all his own way.
What's the world record? Is only 154 flat.
154 flat.
0.6 off that.
So he's only 0.6 off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you could call that relatively close. I know 0.6 is quite a bit of a margin, especially that world record, because it's a monster world record. But he has to be in the conversation of winning gold, potentially.
We could have put multiple Chinese swimmers on this list. I think purely because of Western stereotypes. They aren't talked about much because we don't see them race unless it's a World Championships or an Olympics. There's obviously all of the contamination tests that have all come out, and that is what that is. It's done the damage to the sport that it's done, whatever the outcome of that is. We've spoken about it in a video. The harm from that is as much to the image of swimming as it is to whatever gets found to be true.
Yep.
And maybe that's why a lot of them just aren't getting talked about. But we've said Wang Shun. We could have put... You wanted Zhang Yufei on the 100 fly.
I was thinking Zhang Yufei, yeah.
There's so many of them that it happens every Olympics. No one talks about the Chinese. Just because they don't... As English people, we don't know what they're doing. We don't see the times. But when you see these times of a 154.6, you've got to sit up and go, yeah, you know what? At this point in time, you're the safe bet for an Olympic champion.
Yeah, I think this is part of the problem why the accusations happen, because you don't hear about any of their swims leading up, and then suddenly, let's say Paris or Worlds come up, and then suddenly they throw down a time like that. You're like, where's that time come up? They must be, and they must be doing whatever. So there's a lot of accusations from that point of view. But if there were more media outlets talking about swims out there,
you've been to China.
then maybe that wouldn't be a thing. It's not, no, because there's certain things that are banned out there, like Google, for example. So it's difficult to access, obviously. Yeah. But I think he's got a good chance of definitely medaling. But does he challenge Marchand? That's the big question.
Just throw him into that podium conversation to potentially throw a spanner in Duncan Scott's Olympic program.
Yeah,
he did it last time.
Obviously, hopefully not. Hopefully Duncan,
not from our point.
Duncan gets one ahead of him, but definitely deserves on this list anyway.
Final name on this list then is another IM swimmer, and it's another one under the radar because of two names we've already spoken about, Leon Marchand and Carson Foster, but Lewis Clareburt in the 400 meters IM. He is the second fastest this year behind Carson Foster in a 4:08.71, which is 100th off his PB. I know we said a lot of these swimmers are PBing. He's 100th off. His PB is the 7th fastest all time. He would have won the Olympics in a 4:08.7 in Tokyo. And since Tokyo, he's been ever improving. He is the world champion in this. He won gold in Doha. He's won golds at Commonwealth Games in the 2 fly. I think he's a fabulous swimmer, but because he's in New Zealand and not Australia, it just doesn't get the articles written about him because it's a little bit like the Chinese media wise. It's a little bit inaccessible to. Actually, on social media, he's one of the most accessible people. I love what he does on social media.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I honestly, because I asked the question when we thought of this topic, I was a bit like, is Carson Foster eligible for this category?
Right, no, I said
because it literally is all no Americans in the end, but it's all about Leon Marchand because people are just expecting him to go another world record, and immediately recency biased this, but when people said, oh my god, he could be like the first person to go under sub 4 minutes.
I kind of want that to happen.
So. That would be incredible, but geez, I don't know how that works out time wise. And because of that, and because Marchand is probably, I say that probably, he will hit another world record. Lewis Clareburt, Carson Foster, these guys will not get talked about, even though they win, let's say, silver and bronze, potentially.
I can tell you now, heading into the Olympics, we're probably not going to talk about Clareburt enough because we're going to be homers and bang the drum for Max Litchfield to win bronze.
Of course we are. Of course, Max is going to win bronze, let's say that now.
Yeah, but this guy is firmly in that conversation of a podium. And
he's a definite dark horse.
100%.
Definitely,
It's again a little bit like Marchand. He can do a lot of events. Like I said, at Commonwealth Games, he won... bronze. He won gold in the 200 meters butterfly.
Yeah,
he's a fabulous swimmer. All of these names, I love that they're all improving, or all there or thereabouts their PBs. It's just when the countries don't have the media outlets or the size of almost swimming audience, they just don't get talked about enough.
Well, New Zealand obviously isn't well known for being good at swimming, I would say. It's obviously all rugby based.
Yeah, but
our list actually has 2 New Zealand swimmers on. So, which is part of the reason why maybe they should be pumped out a little bit more.
They definitely should. I actually swam with a New Zealand Olympic swimmer, Hayley Palmer. So she went to
that's right,
Gloucester City. So she went to Beijing and London.
2 Olympics, wasn't it?
2 Olympics.
Yeah.
Great swimmer. They've always been.
There you go. See, they do produce swimmers, New Zealand, obviously. And Lewis Clareburt could very much win a bronze, maybe even a silver. Does he challenge Carson Foster, do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting.
It is, because you could get it wrong quite easily in a 4 IM and start chasing Marchand in the fly leg and then be cooked by the end of it.
Yeah. You got to stick to your own tactics and that, haven't you?
I think he's in the conversation for bronze, definitely.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Can he get up to silver? I don't know. Is he going to get talked over? Because certainly on this podcast, we're going to talk about Max.
Yeah,
I think
I don't know if anyone's going to talk about him outside of being, if you're a Kiwi, obviously then you are. But everyone's going to talk about Marchand.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same with Wang Shun. Everyone's just going to talk about Marchand.
Okay, so that just about rounds up this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. If you have any names that you want to add to this list, if you disagree with any names on this list,
I'm sure people will.
Yeah, I hope
at least
you
one or two.
Understand our criteria for picking these names. I want to say for the two Brits that we've chosen, at no point are we putting pressure on these guys to perform at the Olympics. We are purely excited because we have absolutely no clue on the limits of both of them as swimmers, which is a very nice place to be. Yeah, let us know in the comment section on YouTube, and our Olympic previewing will continue into next week. We'll think of another fun topic to take you guys through.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to do that. Obviously, it's all building up to a massive event, which is actually, when this video uploads, is only like 5 weeks away, isn't it?
No, less than that.
4
It's not
weeks
even
away.
a month. Next week we might talk world records. I'll tell you what, that'd be fun. We'll talk
that'd be
world
exciting.
records.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Cool. So that just about rounds up this week's podcast, guys. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And me and Dan will see you in 7 days' time.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.